talking food with one of the original cooking stars of American television, Jacques Pepin. He was cooking on TV long before Food Network or any of these other channels came along. He has starred on dozens of cooking shows, including those alongside his good friend Julia Child. 26 cookbooks. His latest is Jacques Pepin, New Complete Techniques. If you're like me and you love to cook, it is essential that we visit with Monsieur Jacques Pepin. Welcome to Bookmark.
Thank you for having me.
What a thrill to have you here. You know, it's not a cooking segment.
I know, I don't have anything to do. My hands are idle here, you know. So.
You cook for 3 heads of state in France.
Right.
You come to the United States in the late 50s, and you go to work for Howard Johnson.
Right.
How does that happen?
I came here in 1959, Diane, and I worked at the Pavilion too, and in 1960, actually, I met Julia. And actually, in 1960, I was offered a job at the White House for President Kennedy, then to be, and I went to Howard Johnson.
You went to Howard Johnson,
Yeah.
So President John F. Kennedy or Howard Johnson, you went Howard Johnson.
What was the point is that I had been chef to president in France. I'd never been on television, barely existed, or radio, or on a newspaper or magazine. The cook was really on the lower part of the social scale.
So you mentioned Julia Child. You are introduced to Julia Child before she's Julia Child, before anybody really knew who she was.
Sure.
Tell me your first
1960.
introduction.
1960, I was in New York. A friend of mine, Helen McCauley, was the food editor of McCall, House Beautiful, and she was very friend with James Beard, spoke with him every day, so I was introduced to James Beard a few weeks after I was here. Then I met Craig Claiborne, who just started at the New York Times. He came to do a piece at the Pavilion. And then finally, Helen told me, oh, I have that manuscript of a book. You want to take a look at it? I look, I say, you know, that's pretty good. And she said, well, the woman is coming next week to New York. She's from California. Maybe we can cook for her. She says, she's a big woman with a terrible voice. You know, so
that's how they describe Julia Child.
That was Julia.
But you're looking at this book on French cooking by an American woman. Right. I would think as a Frenchman, you're like, well, hold on. What could an American woman know about French cooking at first?
No, totally different. At that time, I was probably more professional than cooking for the home cook, and what I saw there was something quite different.
So you thought, you look at this, I don't know this woman, but I know she knows how to cook.
Yeah, the technique and all that, but I mean, she was pretty good, yes.
And eventually went on to do these cooking shows together.
Yes, what happened is that I teach at Boston University for the last 31 years now, and Julia lives in Cambridge. And at some point I said, well, maybe we should do a special for PBS. So we did a 3-hour special called Cooking in Concert that we taped at BU actually with her, and it was very successful. So we did another Cooking in Concert maybe a couple of years later and eventually that was the catalyst to make us do the series we did together, yes.
And in the series you could see here are 2 friends, here are 2 great chefs who don't always get along. You both have strong opinions.
Of course. Well, to start with, we had no recipe,
you
know, which is the opposite. Usually when I do a series, I come with at least the manuscript of the book, so the back kitchen has an idea of what you're going to do. You may or may not follow it exactly. There we decided no recipe, so we could do whatever we wanted. The second thing is that usually on PBS, I did many shows where I was to do it on time, that it a 30-minute show, like 28.5 minutes. There, Julia said, you know, we're going to cook. When it's finished, we'll tell you. Some show we did almost 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah, a lot of editing.
Like cooking, yeah.
So
when
it was fun. We drank wine, we cooked, we argued, and we had a good time.
What's not to love?
That's what you do at home, right?
Yes.
What you do with your husband, right?
Yeah, but we really only argue over loading the dishwasher.
Oh, that's it?
Well, in terms of the kitchen.
Okay.
So we're getting along.
No, not with me. My wife, when she cooks, you know, I come into the kitchen, it's not like she said, darling, what do you think? She usually says, don't touch anything.
So at your house, your wife is the boss of the kitchen?
My wife is the boss, period.
And you've been married how long?
47 years.
And this is why.
That's why.
In your most recent book, you're really you're going to about technique.
Yes, and interestingly enough, this is a rework of work that I did in 1974. I did a book called La Technique and then La Méthode and so forth. And I did The Art of Cooking, 2 large volumes in the middle of the 80s. We put all of that together in those because interestingly enough, I don't cook the same way that I did 40 years ago, but the techniques are the same. The way you bone out a chicken, the way you beat an egg white, the way you peel an asparagus, or the way you sharpen a knife is the same now than 50 years ago.
You know, we Americans, we love everything fast and technique and studying.
Right.
People are like, oh, I don't have time for that. Why, if you really want to be a good a good cook? Is that so important?
It is important. It frees your hand, you know. It frees your mind. You can think in terms of recipe, in terms of texture, in terms of combination, and your hands are just working automatically. I mean, you know, you work in a studio to become an artist, a painter. Up to 2 years, you know the law of perspective. You know how to mix yellow and blue to do green. You can step outside and do one painting after another. Does that make you an artist? Not really, but you're a good craftsman. You know. Now, if you only have this, you're not going far. And likewise in the kitchen. I know a fair amount of chefs who are good craftsmen, work fast in the kitchen, and are relatively lousy cook. They don't have much taste. But if you happen to have talent, if you have that knowledge in your hand now, as a good technician, then you can take that talent much farther up. And so if you put a little bit of love in it, you can even do extraordinary dishes.
So for the home cook, there's 3 things I need to learn how to do. If I only learn 3 things, what would be those 3 things? First thing in the kitchen, you come in, have a glass of wine. Okay. Relax you. Got that? No, sharpening a knife is very, very important. You know, very simple, a good pat, a good knife, you know, and do simple stuff. You know, peeling an asparagus is easy. Learning how to peel a potato the right way, garlic and so forth. All of this takes some of the drudgery out of cooking, makes your life easier, you know, and make it fun. And cook with the family. You said, cook with the kid. You say you don't cook the same as you did 40 years ago. What are the biggest changes of what you do? Well, now, you know, we don't cook vegetable as long as we used to. Meat is different. We use much less fat than we used to. Different type of fat. Timing of cooking. It's quite different than it used to be. I mean, especially in America. I mean, in America, the explosion that we've had in America in the last 40, 50 years is unparalleled anywhere in the world. I mean, there is more 3-star restaurant now in New York, according to the Michelin, than there is in Paris. And 24,000 restaurants. I mean, the ethnicity of the cooking here is unmatched anywhere. You know, it's extraordinary. And you were even saying in your own family, your wife has Cuban blood. Yes, my wife born in New York City, Puerto Rican mother, Cuban father, so it's a real New Yorker. Yes. You can see that. Yes, it's a good thing you listen to her, I think. Of course. We do, you know, you take one of my books, you may open page 20, and you have a black bean soup with peeled banana on top, sliced banana and cilantro or whatever. Part of our Cuban heritage. I mean, at my age, after 63 years in the kitchen or whatever, I don't try to be French. By the same token, I don't try not to be French. I don't really think in those terms. I've been Americanized way too long. I've been here half a century. You're practically a native. Thank you. Well, such great tips, Jacques Pepin. It's a pleasure to watch you teach us on television and in your books. Anytime. It's so great to be with you. You already have a nice twinkle in your eye. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. My next question, my final question will be, if I come over and you're going to cook for me, what will you make? I don't know what the market will have to offer this time. And also, if I find out what you like, something in particular, of course, I'll try to please you. Otherwise, likely to be, I don't know, maybe some asparagus, a roast chicken, a gratin of potato, an apple tart. You know, perfect. Something. Perfect. And a lot of wine. I'll be over at 7. Monsieur Pepin, thank you so much.